Okay, Chair Slavin, it looks like I would like to, if it's okay with you, read down the attendance, working with Deputy Jeff Welch, and we can find out if we have quorum, if that's okay with you.
Please go ahead.
Great. Deputy Welch, do you want to read the towns, please?
Abington. Alex Bazians, unmute yourself.
I was muted. I'm here.
Bridgewater. And Susan DeCastro, I'm just admitting her, so give her a second to join in.
And if I might, Jeff, I apologize for interrupting, but when the person from the town identifies himself, if they could just identify their name as well, that'll be helpful for roll call purposes.
All right, we're conducting a roll call. City of Brockton.
Here.
Name.
That would be Councilor Castro.
I'm here.
Okay, Carver.
I just slid into base.
All right, Carver. Duxbury.
Here, Michael McGee, alternate. I expect Ed Flynn will be here as well, but if not, I'm here.
Okay. East Bridgewater. Halifax. Hanover. Hanson. Hingham.
Good evening, Select Board Member Bill Ramsey here.
Hull. Kingston.
Jess Kramer, present.
Lakeville.
Leah Fabian, present.
Marion.
Norm Hills, Marion.
Marshfield.
Steve Darcy here.
Mattapoisett.
Jordan Collier from Mattapoisett.
Middleborough.
Arthur Battistini here.
Norwell. Pembroke.
Becky Coletta here.
Plymouth.
Dick Quintal, Plymouth.
Plimpton.
Mark Russo sitting in for Christine Joy.
Rochester.
Paul Travori here.
Rockland. Situate. Wareham.
Alan Slavin, Wareham.
West Bridgewater. Whitman.
And Salvucci Whitman.
Oh, excuse
And-
me. I just figured out how to unmute it. Denise Reyes, West Bridgewater.
Okay, and we just had someone log in 617-922. Could you identify yourself, please?
Troy.
Oh, Town of Halifax.
Halifax.
Great. We have 18 communities represented at 72.83%, which is quorum. So I will, hold on. A couple of things I just wanted to mention. If during the meeting, if you could please use your chat function to list your name if you have any questions or comments at the appropriate time. Chair Slavin will recognize you to speak, then unmute yourself, and then we're good to go. And now, Chair Slavin, the meeting is yours.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you all for making the effort to come today. I know it's short notice, but we all had a discussion, I think about a month ago, about the ARPA Act itself, and there was questions when the county would actually get involved with it. Obviously, things have changed. That's one of the main reasons for the meeting, plus the transfers. And again, thank you very much for making the time. At this point here, I'm not going to make a bunch of introductions because I'm sure everybody would like to go home and get back to this wonderful heat that we have. So with that, I'd ask Commissioner Wright if she would like to go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
To the
to the
flag.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and
With liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. And basically introduce Tom O'Brien, who's going to talk about the CARES update for us.
Thank you very much, Alan. And I was told that last time I was a bit choppy because of the Wi-Fi. So Frank Basler and Deputy Treasurer Welch said, we're getting you a camera. So I apologize that now you can actually see me and hear me. I've been tasked with a very quick CARES update, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chair Hanley to do a quick introduction of Chair Valenzola on some CARES stuff, and then we'll get to the real meat and potatoes. I just wanted to thank everybody here for your participation in the CARES program and the efforts of you and your team. The success of this program, and please understand that this program has been recognized now nationally for its success, is the result of the fact that we work well together, we work closely together, and we know each other. One of the reasons the commissioners stepped up to the plate and accessed the $90 million in CARES money was because they knew that we knew your needs and you knew how to reach us. And it's been a fantastic relationship over the last 14 months. I feel as though I've talked to each and every one of your towns, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes I get the chance to talk to each of you directly. Don't ever hesitate to call, but it's that type of connection. We're close, we're local, and we're here to help you. To date, we've processed more than 265 submissions. Think about that, if you will. 265 submissions just in Plymouth County alone, totaling more than $46 million back to your residents. That's remarkable. And I know that when Commissioner Valenzola has his next presentation, you'll see how remarkable that really is. I am pleased to report, without naming names, that 3 of the communities in Plymouth County have reached their cap allocated to them at the beginning of the program through phase 7. We currently have approximately 100 additional submissions in process, totaling another $20 million. The process has been very thorough and complete. One significant value add that we bring to the table is that we do all the audit work for you. We do all the accounting work for you. And so when we turn over a submission to you, it's complete. We've heard factually that some towns outside of Plymouth County had applied for CARES money and had to turn money back. Because our process is so thorough, that's not something you have to worry about. Additionally, all of the reporting that's being done at the state and federal level is being done by Plymouth County on your behalf. And so that's certainly one value add, and it takes some of the pressure off of you and your teams to make that happen. I did just want to say and remind everybody that this program runs through December 31st, 2021. Let me repeat that. The CARES program runs through December 31st, 2021. I got 3 calls today from communities asking if today was the cutoff point for the CARES program. The answer is no. The cutoff point is December 31st, 2021. So if you still have COVID-related costs that meet the CARES guidelines, and if you have questions about that, please go to PlymouthCountyCares.com because all those guidelines are there. We will continue to process your applications through that date. We've been given a few months after that to do all of our final accounting on your behalf, but that is the drop dead date to complete the CARES program. There's a lot that I want to talk about. I want to turn it over to Commissioner Hanley to introduce Commissioner Valenzola. Commissioner Valenzola has prepared a neat little chart that we want to share with you, and then the commissioners and I are available for questions about CARES before we get to ARPA. Commissioner Hanley.
Thank you, Treasurer O'Brien. And I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for putting this meeting together on such short notice. As you know, County Commissioners, after much thought, many deliberations, have adopted ARPA on behalf of our member communities. This time around, we're not the only county to adopt it. I have been working as liaison from Plymouth County, representing the Mass County Commissioners Association with Bristol, Norfolk, and Barnstable. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our point person on ARPA, Jared Valenzola is our newest commissioner. And because of the amount of work that's still required of us as the county to continue CARES and now take on ARPA, we've decided to distribute the workload amongst commissioners. So I want to introduce you to Jared. He's done some fantastic work since he's been with us. As we related in the last meeting, we've finally adopted it and we're ready to roll out some information for you. But Jared had some interesting information from Plymouth County CARES, and I'm going to turn it over to him. And I want to thank you all for coming out on such short notice on such a very important vote. So with that, Commissioner Valenzola.
Thank you, Chair Hanley, Chairman Slavin, and to the members of the advisory board. It's my pleasure to be with you folks again. I know I spoke with you back in November, so it's my honor and privilege to be able to speak with you folks again tonight. As Chairman Hanley alluded to, and I am the new guy. I was sworn in January. So what I can say without a doubt, Commissioner Wright, Chairman Hanley, and my predecessor, Dan Pilata, stepping up to do this program with Treasurer O'Brien and the entire team in this office. What they've been able to do is remarkable. Jeff, I'll have you put the sheet up now, if you don't mind, Deputy Treasurer Welch. One of the things that I've learned as I've gone out and communicated with some of the member communities, I've tried to get out and be in most of your town halls in the last 6 months. And luckily, I think I've been able to get to most of them. And we've taken some feedback on the performance of the CARES Act. One of the things that I knew was sort of anecdotally spoken of, but never really confirmed, was that we, as the county, were able to produce and distribute to you more money than had the commissioners given that back to the state. So you can see on the screen, I've put together a comparison. One of the things that I will say surprised me when I started making this comparison was not only were we able to supply more money, it's almost twice as much money than other like-sized communities in the Commonwealth. For example, I'll highlight the city of Brockton, 18 million compared to a like-sized city in New Bedford, $8.4 million. The other part I'll highlight with especially Brockton is New Bedford has only received 27.68% of their money so far to date, whereas Brockton, I believe, is at 60%. So you can see your community on there. As this document gets more refined, we're going to distribute it. So Plymouth County today, and just heard Treasurer O'Brien mention the number, $46 million has been processed by Plymouth County. If you add up the total cap amount that the state has offered, Plymouth County has now processed more money for your communities with still, I think the treasurer mentioned 20 million in process, than the entire state capped your like-sized community comparison. So Plymouth County has delivered more money. We delivered it quicker. And one of the things that I highlight is we've done it cheaper. Right now, the administrative cost of the Plymouth County CARES program has stood at about 1%. Right now, it's a little bit less. We've maintained that. That is well below the national average. That's well below the state average. And I cite the state's website, which I can't really read because it's an alphabet soup of links to get to it. But we're not really sure how much it's cost the state. There have been no big contracts that have gone out to help them process their funds. So the Plymouth County CARES Act program has been a significant program that has made multiple benefits. And you can tell communities such as West Bridgewater, 1.2 million compared to Rockport, $600,000. My favorite is to point out a comparison to the town of Swampscott, which of course is home to Governor Charlie Baker. They were capped at $1.3 million. Dan Salvucci, if you're listening, listen closely, Whitman, 2.3 million. So Whitman, $1 million more dollars than the governor's hometown. To segue into ARPA, and I think we're going to toss it back to Treasurer O'Brien for ARPA. I think the success and the ability to put the CARES Act program together as well as we did is what has made us confident in our ability to do ARPA. My last thing on the CARES Act, and if folks have questions, like I said, this is going to be sent out, but we've delivered more money, cheaper and quicker than had the commissioners 14 months ago decided to send that portion of funding to the state. And I know Commissioner Wright, Commissioner Hanley, my predecessor, and myself, as well as Treasurer O'Brien, are extremely proud of this program and to have been able to have done it. And as the treasurer has noted, there's still more money available, and we are more than pleased to send that out. And
And every time that check has been deposited, you can have the confidence that the compliance has been met. And that is all I have on that for now.
Thank you.
I did, if it's okay, Chair Slavin and Chair Hanley and Commissioner Valenzola and Commissioner Wright, if there are questions about CARES, now would be the time to do that before we head into the main event, ARPA. But if anybody has questions, please maybe raise your hand or let Alan know. We're happy to answer those before we move on.
It'll be easier if we do it through the chat, therefore it'll be a lot clearer.
Sounds good.
So far, nobody has gone into the chat.
And I'll just highlight another town, Chair, real quick before we move on. A town like Marshfield, which has received 100% of their money. They've been up again, they received 100% of 3.8 million compared to Belmont, who has only received 2.3 million. And there are communities like their size that are barely received half of less money. So when you really start to put in perspective and put it down on paper, the Plymouth County CARES program has been a significantly remarkable program that we are extremely proud of and happy to stand by.
Thank you, Jared. Becky Coletta, why don't you unmute yourself?
Yes, I was just trying to be clear about whether or not the money in Jared's presentation, when we were looking at it, were you including the money that the state distributed to the schools under CARES Act when you were comparing the two numbers?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I appreciate that. So the state website, and we can send that out to you. That is all encompassing of CAP. So I know the state did break out certain phasing, much like we did. The state website, however, when it listed the caps for municipalities, that was the municipality cap.
All set, Becky?
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm just going to add if I could, because I think Commissioner Valenzola answered it, but essentially what is on that sheet, Becky, is apples to apples. So that's the portion of the money that the state allocated to municipal resources, and ours is the same comparison.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Leah Fabian, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I was just curious. I thought we were supposed to receive all reimbursements by June 30th that were submitted. Is that no?
So obviously we're processing them as quickly as possible. Our goal had to been to get all submissions that had been submitted to us through March out by June 30th. We had a number of towns that submitted all at once on December 30th. We've had a lot of towns submit after March. If you have particular questions about your submissions, please let us know. But we're at our target. Again, we already have 3 communities that have hit their cap. But if you have a particular question about a submission, whether it's Lakeville or Whitman, please call and we can tell you where it is. We track these every day. We have checks coming out. I actually think, Leah, that we did just bring some checks over to Lakeville. And so we'll continue to process them as quickly as we can. I will say that on December 30th, which folks will remember was the original deadline, we had a slew of submissions come in that day. And so we've been, we hit that log jam. The team added more people and we'll continue to process them. But if you have a particular question about a particular submission, please let me know. We'll be happy to answer it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mike McGee, why don't you unmute yourself, please?
Thank you very much. And thank you, commissioners. Those amounts are incredible. I just wanted to clarify, was that a total amount processed or did it also include pending?
So the comparison sheet, thank you, Mr. McGee. The comparison sheet is just caps. One of the things that I've been working on is the percentages of what has been processed. So as you heard Treasurer O'Brien mention, the total we have processed for the entire program is 46 million of the 90 million. Just for the comparison, the state cap on those comparable size communities to yours was about 46 million. So Plymouth County has already processed what would have been your caps had the state managed this program for Plymouth County.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anybody else, so let's continue.
Mr. Chairman, Dan Salvucci has his hand up.
Okay. I won't
Okay,
do it.
if I may, I just want to congratulate the Plymouth County on the job they've done. I can remember when the situation came out and we started the process, there was a few towns that were hesitant in wondering if the state should handle it or should Plymouth County, is it too much for Plymouth County? I am so happy that Plymouth County proved them wrong because I think they've done an excellent job. And I know that our treasurer collector, Mary Beth Carter, has got in touch with the county treasurer, Tim, and he has answered all questions that she had. And she knows that if there is any further questions, she can get a hold of him and there'd be no issues and she'd get the answers, you know, maybe not what she was looking for, but the answers to the questions that she has. So anyways, I wanted to thank Plymouth County very much and the job they did. And I think we just outdid this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other hands up and there's nothing else in the chat, so we can go ahead and move on. Tom?
Move on to ARPA. Thank you very much. And Dan, thank you so much for that. I get to hear that regularly as I talk to all the treasurers. They really appreciate the effort. I talked to 2 administrators today as we delivered some checks. It's nice for the commissioners to hear as well that you guys really recognize that we've gotten more money to you and it's been such a success. And we're always pleased when we can make sure that our performance is something that the state ultimately models itself after. I'll just point out too, that they actually pivoted on their program and turned around in October and modeled it after ours. So we were a leader. The commissioner certainly took that bold step and then turned to me and said, make it so, treasurer. So we've certainly done our best. Moving on to ARPA. This has been a very lengthy process and decision-making process. As everyone here knows, the Congress passed and President Biden signed a $1.9 trillion package on March 11th, 2021, with the statute required that monies be made available. That didn't mean distributed, but made available by May 11th. Not surprisingly, the federal government decided to issue interim final regulations, and I love that, on May 10th, the day before the deadline. Subsequently, they've issued 3 additional updates and additional guidance through frequently asked questions. I mention all of that because this is clearly a work in process. Everyone needs to take a deep breath, relax, because unlike CARES, the ARPA program, the American Rescue Plan Act program, is expected to last 3 years. Think about that. This is expected to last through December 31st, 2024. And I have been shocked by communities largely outside of Plymouth County who call me and say, well, I've got my money, I've got to spend it by June 30th for ARPA. And I'm thinking to myself, no, this is a forward-looking grant. You really need to be thinking about 23 and 24. And so we all need to proceed calmly, thoughtfully, and with the appropriate amount of caution. This is a lot of money. In the $1.9 trillion CARES Act, there's separate money for healthcare. There's separate money for libraries. There's separate money for schools. There's separate money for child development. There's separate money for vaccines. There's separate money for community healthcare centers, rather. And people are getting confused with the money that we're talking about. So please understand the money that we're about to talk about is $350 billion of the $1.9 trillion package that went to state, local, and tribal governments. And that money has rules, and we'll talk about those. And the rules are the same for each tranche or level of those monies. There are 4 levels, if you will, under the state, local, and tribal government allocation of $350 billion. There's the state level, and here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the state received $5.3 billion. And in fact, you've seen in the papers recently, the debate between the governor and the legislature as to who's going to be in control of that money. It does appear that the legislature won that debate ultimately. We can talk about that, and I know we will in a little bit. There was a separate allocation for metro communities. A metro community under the statute is identified as a community with a population of 50,000 or more, or a community that is regionally central to its area. So think of a city with a population of less than 50,000 that is a city, they would have been eligible for this money as well. In Plymouth County, there are only two, the city of Brockton and the town of Plymouth. The city of Brockton is eligible for, and I believe it's probably applied for half of this already, $34.5 million. That's separate from any money we're about to talk about. Plymouth is also eligible for about $9.5 million, separate from any money we're talking about. That's under the metro community level. The third level was what they call NEU, non-entitlement unit. Essentially, that's anybody else that isn't a metro community. You are all individually eligible for separate money under ARPA that is going to the state if you're an NEU, and you can apply for it, and you get half now and half later. But the rules are the same, and the deadlines are the same. I was shocked to hear, again, a community outside of Plymouth County applied for their state portion of that money and is trying to spend that money, the entire portion of it, by the end of July. And I'm shocked. I'm shocked because the rules aren't even final yet. I guarantee there will be mistakes made. And this is intended to cover the recovery that we know we're going to need over the next 3 years. So I would humbly suggest any community, with maybe one exception, and we can talk about that, that plans on spending this money all at once isn't really understanding the purpose of this resource. The final level tranche is counties. Now, please understand the money coming to the counties is to be managed by the county pursuant to these rules, but the county is not required to turn it around to communities. It's not required to design a program, which we'll be talking about in a second. However, here in Plymouth County, because we have fantastic commissioners, we recognize that the best use of this resource would be to do our best to deliver it back to our 27 communities. However, the rules of ARPA are much more complicated than the rules of CARES. And I will caution every single selectman and town employee on this call to listen to this very carefully, because you will hear that this money can be spent in a certain way. You'll hear it on the radio, you'll hear it on TV, you'll hear it in the newspaper. And I have found out that 80% of the information that people are giving out there about how you can spend ARPA money is wrong. I met with a community that told me they intended to spend it a certain way that was completely against the law as envisioned by ARPA. And it's simply that the rules are still coming out, they're changing as we speak, and we want to make sure communities don't make mistakes along the way. So think about this money. These rules are the same for the state, the metro communities, the NEU, and the county. There are essentially 4 categories that you can spend this money on over 3 years. The first category is revenue replacement. Now, I will caution you all that there are some communities that think that they can say, oh, we lost revenue in this particular line item, and so therefore we want to replace that into the next year budget. That's not how it works. It has to be budget as a whole. There's a very complicated formula that's in the statute. So you can actually go look up the formula and begin to do the math. However, we're hoping that we'll help you with that. And I doubt that many communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are going to be eligible for revenue replacement, at least in fiscal 22, maybe not in fiscal 23. But if you've been paying attention, this is a 3-year grant, so you may need it in fiscal 24. So you want to make sure that you don't rush to spend it if you're going to need it down the road. And that's when it may qualify. Second is what they call premium pay. Some people refer to it as hazard pay. And I know that there are folks that immediately think, well, there are many frontline workers that we want to take care of. But again, I caution you that there are rules and guidelines. It is largely intended for the lower paid employees of individual governmental entities. And by those, we mean anybody making at or about 150% of the federal poverty level, which is approximately $35,000 or $40,000. It depends on your region. I don't want you to hold that number, but I want you to think about the fact that many of our employees probably aren't eligible with that guideline in mind. So again, be careful, be cautious if that's something you're thinking of doing, because there are strict rules, strict guidelines that need to be followed. The third category, and I lump subcategories, but it's a public health response or the negative impacts of COVID. So I largely think of it this way. If a community needed to address COVID and they had a public health impact, and it wasn't covered under CARES because CARES was very strict, it may be something that would be covered under ARPA. However, my rule of thumb is very simple. If you're thinking of submitting something to ARPA because it was a public health response or a negative impact of COVID, make sure you feel comfortable making the case to Channel 5 or Fox 25 or those very nice gentlemen in sunglasses with blue windbreakers and the gold letters FBI on their backs. If you feel comfortable explaining your expenditure to that group of people, then it's probably legitimate. But if you have any questions about it and say, then it's probably not something that would be eligible under ARPA or CARES. It's been fascinating as we've worked on the CARES program for you folks and you have been very diligent about asking questions. Largely, I found out if it's something you have to ask about, it's probably not covered. That's really, I'm learning that. Now, that's not always the case, but it's largely the case. And then the last one, and this is interesting, is infrastructure. But it's narrowly defined as water, sewer, and broadband. So I've heard of towns outside of Massachusetts and outside of Plymouth County that think that they hear infrastructure and they're going to fix buildings, which clearly need it, or they've got a long-term capital project, or they want to buy vehicles. No, 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 not allowed under ARPA. This is intended specifically for water, sewer, and broadband. So as we're reading these rules, understanding and appreciating the guidelines, we've had a very challenging task in front of us of having everybody again relax, take a deep breath, say, okay, because to us, and I know the commissioners believe this, it's more important to do it right and to follow the rules so you don't have problems at the end than to do it fast and quickly to accommodate a public demand or a concern or pressure from the media. This needs to be done cautiously, thoughtfully, and in due course. I can tell you that the commissioners ruminated about this, and I've been very proud of them because this is not an easy decision. This is a significantly huge undertaking that they deliberated on seriously. And we've had numerous conversations with the feds and with the state about whether we should take the money, how we would administer it. And I'm going to turn it over, I think, to either Chair Hanley or to Commissioner Valenzola to talk about a little bit of that deliberation and how they ultimately came to the conclusion that this would be something that the county could and should administer. I will tell you this, though. They tasked me with coming up with a outline of what would need to be done to manage this as successfully as CARES. I said, boy, you guys are tough. I mean, I put all my resources, all my thought, every bit of resource to make CARES as successful. I'm not sure I can replicate it, but I know that I will try. So I'm going to turn it over to the commissioners to elaborate on that. Then we'll answer some questions about ARPA. I just wanted to give an overview. I don't want to get into specific questions if we could avoid it, but happy to if we need to. So I don't know which commissioner is going to field the next round. Commissioner Valenzola, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Treasurer. So as it related to ARPA, as the Treasurer just started elaborating on, we had been in conversations with the administration relative to what our portion of this funding and how its allocation would be distributed through the state. One of the challenges we had as commissioners was, would it be worth our while to administer this for our communities if we serve as nothing more than a pass-through and just have the money go directly to you folks? As the Treasurer began elaborating on, one of the successes of CARES was the envy of legislators outside of Plymouth County, seeing just how well we executed CARES and the immense frustration that they felt and their communities felt when they had to deal with deal with the administration. So as we were progressing through our timeline, we were having conversations with the administration, and the administration was indicating that, yep, there's a good chance we will be sending the funds straight to the communities. Once the legislature got involved, and the legislature since, I believe the governor signed yesterday, the bill that transfers every penny except for $200 million from the control of administration and finance to a new legislatively controlled, I think it's called an ARPA Relief Fund or Federal Fund Act or whatever they named it. State House News Story yesterday confirmed what I began to suspect. And at that moment, when the legislature had filed that piece of legislation, that was when my colleagues and I tasked the treasurer with making sure that these funds remained in our hands and not in the hands of the legislative process. And by the legislative process, I mean now, and we are blessed to have fantastic legislators in Plymouth County, and this is by no means a put down on the legislature as a whole, but the legislative process involves going into public hearings in the State House and justifying the expenditures that you want to make before a committee of individuals that are not from your community or not from the county. And then it's voted on by that committee. It's voted on by 200 individuals, 160 reps, 40 senators. The process can be long. It can take months. It can even take up to a year and a half. So when that hypothetical became the reality, we tasked the treasurer with crafting a plan for us to be able to execute this program effectively and efficiently for our communities, just as we did with CARES. You will see before you on the agenda, there are some budget transfers. To do that, we are going to be investing in ensuring that this program goes as well as it needs to. And we are investing in the talent that we have in the treasurer's office that we've been able to accumulate through the administration of CARES. So you will see those in front of you. But as the legislature embarks on this, we are very proud of the fact that we're going to be able to partner with our communities and execute a program that, by my quick math, is going to amount to about 3% to 3.5%. We were proud of doing CARES at 1%. By the treasurer's estimation, and I've begun reading the interim final rule again. This is a robust program with, as I say, a lot of minefields. There's a lot more that can go wrong with this program than with CARES. It's going to require a little more attention to detail than the CARES Act. We are absolutely confident that we can produce that attention to detail with what we have before you this evening. So with that, if there are any other questions, I think I covered it all. Treasurer O'Brien, thank you.
Yeah, so before we move on, are there questions about ARPA generally that people have that we might be able to answer? Again, it's early stages. The county will be developing a program over the next month and a half. We are going to use the resources. We're going to develop a robust program, and we hope that will effectuate the same economies of scale for our communities, a resource for you to be able to access as well. Because don't forget, you're getting direct monies yourself, and you have to follow those same guidelines. I am aware of already 5 communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that have not spent ARPA money the right way. They caught themselves, but we really do want to be careful, and we're going to do our best to provide you those resources.
And the last thing I'll add, Treasurer, and through you to the chair, I just again want to extend my gratitude to our Chairman Greg Hanley and Commissioner Wright. You may have read or heard. They've tasked me with serving as a liaison from the Commissioner's office to the Treasurer's office and by extension to the communities. And I, again, want to extend my gratefulness to Chairman Hanley and Commissioner Wright. And again, I keep talking about CARES, but if it weren't for their blood, sweat, and tears, and as well as the Treasurers in making the CARES Act one of the most successful programs in the nation, we wouldn't be here before you this evening doing ARPA, and I certainly wouldn't be here working with your communities to make ARPA just as an effective and efficient program as the CARES Act. So again, I want to extend my gratitude to Commissioner Wright and Chairman Hanley.
Chair Slavin, oh, I think you're muted, Alan.
Sorry. I believe we have on the chat right now, Arthur Bazzantini. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi there. Just a question regarding the infrastructure under ARPA. So for water, sewer, or broadband, does that need to be connected to a COVID-related fix or expense, or can that just be general, any water, sewer, or broadband project?
Great question. If I might field that, Chair Slavin, and to the commissioners, I can tell you that the federal government is still divining an answer to that question. They originally came out and said that it was presumed that most water and sewer projects would be COVID related. However, over the course of the past 3 or 4 weeks, communities in the western part of the state came up with some clever projects that clearly wouldn't have been eligible. So the short answer is, Arthur, right now, it's presumed that most projects would be covered, but they're going to refine those guidelines. Again, that's why we don't want to rush. My sense is they will largely view a project that is the result of strain on water resources or sewer resources that is relatively new as eligible. So if you guys have, any of your communities have a water project that you've ignored since the 50s, I can't imagine that's anybody here, and now want to use this money to solve that problem, they might say, but if you had everyone staying at home, you've had increased demand on your water mains and your sewer, and you need to do an upgrade, that would largely be my anticipated estimate right now, eligible. But the guidelines, they just updated them again last Thursday. So, you know, they're going to keep coming out. We're going to keep saying, right now, I would say most of them would be eligible, but not all.
Okay, Lilia, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sorry. So I thought at the annual meeting, it was mentioned that Norwell was doing some experimenting with the revenue replacement. Is that true, or did I get that right? And if so, what are they finding? I thought it was being done more like a, not a test, but they were figuring it out.
I'm going to start, but I'll welcome any of the commissioners to follow up after. I know that not just Norwell, but many communities initially saw that and said, hey, we lost revenue in our meals tax, or we lost revenue in our hotel tax. We're going to do a quick plug-in. I believe that, again, Norwell and many communities thought that would be the case. Up until recently, I think they were erroneous in that analysis. Again, recent guidelines shows that it needs to be a look at an entire budget from date certain. So the federal law says from December 31st of 2020 to December 31st of 2021, if you lost revenue as a whole with a 4.2% kicker, and I can explain that later, then you'd be eligible. But I have yet to see a community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts over that time period that would be eligible. Now, that might exclude some of the bigger cities, but real estate tax revenue in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts was not down and often offset losses in other areas. However, and this is key, and I'm really glad for the question, that I believe we're going to see a downturn in the economy. I think it's inevitable. And I think that's going to happen in the fiscal 23-24 timeframe. And I think those communities that are prudent and don't use the resources now to help deal with that challenge that we know is coming will be in a better position. So I can't speak to Norwell's updates particularly and specifically or particularly, but I do know that we did have a conversation. I think there was some confusion about line item replacement, but it's very clear the law, it says you have to look at the budget as a whole, and very few towns would be eligible, at least in this fiscal year. I know Commissioner Valenzola was at a meeting too. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything there, Jared.
Yeah, I'll just supplement that, Treasurer O'Brien. To that point, and it's in the interim final rule, it's an overall total look. My hometown, I'm from Rockland. I think we closed our books about $50,000 less. The formula, I'm not a math person, so the formula gave me a headache without really delving too much into it. But it is a very strict and stringent formula. To the treasurer's point, and one thing I think to note, for the future planning of this, one of the reasons why I think a lot of our communities were not impacted budgetarily wise was based on the mortgage forgiveness, right? You could defer your mortgage payments several months in advance. Obviously, all of those forgivenesses are not going to be in effect any longer. And unfortunately, one of the things I would anticipate as well is an uptick in foreclosures, unfortunately, because now those bills are going to start to become due for some folks as the economy slowly bounces back. So to that end, when you start losing that revenue down the road, hypothetically, again, as the treasurer points out, comments as well, everything is changing constantly. But it would be wise if revenue replacement is something you would think of doing to hold on to that and to really make sure that it's something that is applicable. Because from what I've been able to read and understand, that one is the one fraught with the most peril. So to that end, I would be very prudent should your communities decide to go down that road. And again, it might be worthwhile setting aside some of your allotment to address that in year 2 and year 3 of this program as our window becomes more clear as we get closer to those situations.
Okay, yeah, I'm not picking on Norwell. I don't want Norwell to think that.
No, we're not picking on them either.
Yeah, in my section with the loss of revenue section, I had made that note that it said right there, one of the commissioners had said that Norwell is practicing this and trying to figure it out. I didn't know if, they had anything to offer or if you guys did. So thank you. I appreciate the answers.
You're welcome.
Put anyone on the spot.
Yeah, no, and we're happy to answer it. I mean, it's one of those things that it's going to take us, as we get this program going, some time to really sort of sift through what revenue replacement's definition is going to be and how to apply it. That's going to take some time to make sure that we do that correctly, because the last thing any of us would want to do is replace revenue only to then have to turn that back in. So, and I'm confident that our team is going to be able to do that effectively for our communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike McGee, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Just a general question for our finance committees and finance directors. What kind of what recommendations would you make for them to start putting together either wish lists or to doing their research as the county builds its program?
If I might, and I loved how you couched the question, Mike, with other than patience, because that is the first thing. Patience and caution. I think you've hit upon it. They need to start developing a list of ideas and thoughts. Recognize, I found the best ideas are when you brainstorm. 80% of them are going to be bad ideas, but it's the 20% that are real gold nuggets. So put together a wish list, recognizing most of what's on the wish list won't be eligible or isn't going to qualify, but it at least gives you a good global picture of what the town needs. I think it becomes a valuable resource. 2 other resources for you. I know your finance teams, all of them follow the DLS bulletins. They've issued some pretty good guidance, both on the use of the NEU money and ARPA as a whole. They early on made some mistakes, but they've fixed those along the way. So read the DLS bulletins, and then feel free to contact my office. Most of your treasurers talk to me fairly regularly. I enjoy them all very much. But, I have the task of being the point person on this. So I spend my nights reading. So my 4th of July, I have 4 ARPA things that I'll be taking home and reading when it rains. And so I try to be as up to date as I can on all this, and I try to be a resource. So quickly, just develop a global wish list, read the DLS bulletins, and contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see anybody's hand up. Anyone else? Okay.
So if you like, Chair Slavin, I can bring us through the, at least set up the motion for us. We have 2.
You're going to go ahead and list the first section transfers.
Yes.
And probably once you list it, I'll ask if anybody has any questions before we take a motion.
Great, thank you. First off, both transfers that we're talking about tonight are budget neutral. The first one is solely focused on ARPA and the ability to complete ARPA. As Treasurer O'Brien stated, this is one of the things that needed to be done in order to have the horsepower to attack such a huge program. And I would say in working with the commissioners, especially all the foundational work that Chair Hanley has done, and in the future going forward with Commissioner Valenzola as the liaison, and of course, the big toe Treasurer O'Brien, who's in high def today, is great. But this first transfer, again, budget neutral, transfers a program that we had talked about just a few weeks ago, the grant writer. So because opera is a higher priority and can bring a lot more return on investment, we'll be transferring $75,000 away from the grant writer program for right now. And then we also were taking $45,000 from the general group insurance line item. And that's a line item in the 99 department. And that totals $120,000 of expense that we're looking to transfer into the employee payroll line item in the treasurer's department 30, the treasurer's office. And these are for funding of 3 positions. One is, 2 of them, excuse me, are incremental increases for the positions, and 45,000 of the 120 is for secretarial admin support for all the work that needs to be done. So again, it's 75,000 from regional professional and technical services, which was identified as for the grant writer program, 45,000 from grant insurance. Both will be transferred into the employee line item of the treasurer's office.
Okay. Do you have any questions at all before we do anything? Daniel?
Yes, Tom, just want curious, any of these COVID related, the extra work for the employees that maybe we can get reimbursed?
Great question. It's not COVID related, but ARPA related, Dan. So we are hoping that it will all be reimbursed under ARPA, but the commissioners, on my recommendation, are prudent to make sure it's covered within the budget, just in case it's not. We're going to be seeking legal counsel. And so once we have that legal counsel, we'll be getting reimbursed from ARPA.
Might as well go for it.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Denise Reyes, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. So I think it was roughly 70, was it 75,000 is being transferred to 2 people? Are those permanent increases?
Yes, we are looking at, it would be a $28,000 increase to the special assistant to the treasurer, who will be strictly focused along with ARPA and has been focused on CARES and other projects. And then there will be an increase for the treasurer for all those hours that he has been putting in the past, but more so with the huge demand that's expected coming forward over the next multiple years. So the 75,000 is split between 47,000 for the treasurer, 28,000 for the special assistant to the treasurer.
Thank you.
And I'll just note, Mr. Chairman, if I may, as the treasurer elaborated on, we are pretty certain this is money that will be reimbursed through ARPA. At the conclusion of ARPA, those salaries will return. So they will not be permanent in the sense that they're forever. This is only for the duration of ARPA, at which point those salaries will then be returned to their current levels.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I will just the last quick thing I'll add too is this is actually, and I was remiss in my opening remarks with this, when we tasked the treasurer with coming up with a plan, his original plan was actually more expensive than this one, and we told him to sharpen his pencil and make it more palatable for us and for our communities, and he has done that.
Okay. I don't see anything in the chat, but I saw someone else make a question.
Actually, Chair, Jess Kramer asked, is it okay if Jess comes on?
Absolutely.
Hi, yes, I was just wondering, so Kingston signed on for the service the county is providing to have a grant writer for local grants, and I think that there's 3 or 4 other communities involved with that. Is the grant writing line item that you're talking about that line item, or is it for county-wide grant writing?
I can take that, Chair, if it's okay.
Go ahead.
So originally we had said we created the grant writer as a funded program from 3 towns that would each contribute $25,000. And then we would hire and manage the grant writer specifically for those towns. That we had some, we decided that right, or you all decided it in the budget, along with the commissioners, right before COVID hit. With COVID hitting, we ran into some phasing and timing where town meetings and approvals at the towns we were focused on that had given earlier commitments actually had some leadership changes and then also funding challenges in getting those monies onto the town meetings. So we did step back, and actually Commissioner Valenzola said this year, let's just fund it and then we'll create the program for the towns, forward fund it so that we can get going on it. ARPA is a higher priority. When you look at the millions of dollars versus grant writing, we still think there's a tremendous value and opportunity with grant writing. We'll go back, and actually I talked to your office just yesterday, Jess, that we are going to try to create the program again with the funding so that Kingston would be allowed, along with a few others that have shown a ton of interest, and get that going. But it probably will end up being September now instead of right now. And of course, that 25 would then be prorated. You wouldn't be paying a full year. You'd be paying 3/4 of the year, and then we'd get that up and running. But again, it's just, we run very lean at the county, and it's a sense of prioritization that's really critical.
And I'll just add, if I can, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Frank, for that. Yes, the grant writer was a priority of mine for us to forward fund it. I think we recognize that this is ARPA is a far more important priority right now. That being said, and I've asked the treasurer to do this, and I think he will, as it becomes more clear that the increases are covered by ARPA, and that money can then be returned back to hopefully finding and getting a grant writing program off the ground as well. So as of now, this is more just taking that money, transferring it so we can get the ARPA program going. Once we are getting reimbursed for the cost of ARPA, I anticipate at least hopefully being able to restart that process of finding a grant writer as well.
Thank you. Becky Coletta, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Jared really just answered my question. I was asking, once we get the ARPA money, can we restart that process of working grant writers? Because clearly ARPA is not going to fund everything our towns are looking for, and getting access to other grants could be critical, particularly if there's an infrastructure bill passed this summer that might bring a different set of money that's not as tied to COVID itself.
Thank you. Jordan Collier, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thanks, Alan. Pretty straightforward. I know we're looking to increase salaries, and again, I trust Tom. I trust everybody here. But does it make sense to execute an MOU or a contract amendment that outlines the duration or potential duration, the increase that's applied, and what that's going to look like at the end of this? In the event that, say, Tom's not here at the end of this, which I hope he is, or anybody else affected, that we don't end up in a situation we've got a salary that's stuck or in a sticky position that we can't back out of, since this is an advisory board vote and it's not an official action by the commissioners and or the county.
I'm going to, if it's okay, Chair, offer a first thought, and I know that I see our counsel there. I'm going to suggest, Jordan, that that's not necessary, because our salaries are set every year by the commissioners and then by the advisory board. So if at any point in time there's an issue, it can be turned back by the commissioners. So there's no need to do that. It's a bit challenging with me because I'm an elected official, but both the commissioners and then you folks really set my salary every year, and of all of the employees. So at some point, I'm not going to be the county treasurer. I intend to stay here for a while longer. I still have some running room left, but I do expect when I leave, you'd start the next treasurer at a salary less than what I'd be making because of the education and experience I bring to the table. So that happens every year, and I think that's your check and balance.
No, and through the chair, obviously, I respect that, Tom. I agree. We've been down the road of votes that have been taken and have been overturned in the past year. This isn't something new. We've seen it in towns. We've seen it within the county. And again, I'm not saying anything nefarious would occur, but I think at the end of the day, at the very least, the advisory board should have an MOU with the commissioners and or the administration to ensure that this is what's going to happen, because this will continue on a not quote unquote rubber stamp basis for the next several years when if ARPA is approved and we do this, but we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we could artificially inflate something and memories can be short, especially when it comes to salaries. So while I agree with you, and I think you're absolutely correct, and I obviously respect your opinion enthusiastically, I just want to make sure that we're in a position that we're not trying to back out of something and getting a fight later. That's all.
If I can pipe in, Shannon Resnick, I'm the attorney for the Plymouth County Commissioners.
Thank you.
I advised against a contract for a couple of reasons. One, Treasurer O'Brien is an elected official, and our commissioners and everyone on this body are all elected officials. So if you create something by contract, you can create a wage right that would be very difficult to take away by further vote. So no offense to Treasurer O'Brien, if he had a contract protection for the next 3 years and this body decided next year to take away that funding, he has the right to enforce it by contract. So I just suggest that the easiest and best way to ensure the integrity of the vote would be two parts. One, the vote that will be read tonight indicates that the funding source is anticipated to come from ARPA. So it does designate in the vote that that's where the funding sources hope to come from. And then also to just the right that the advisory board has to change that at any time.
And through the chair, Alan, one more here. I thank you and I respect that and I appreciate that. My request was for an MOU, not a contract. Just simply something between the voting authority, just so that we have something in writing. I know that this is a binding vote that can be referred back to, but it's been our experience in the past that not every binding vote necessarily holds true longer term. So that was my request. I will respectfully rescind my comment and we'll go with council's opinion.
Thank you. Any other question there? Denise Reyes, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. For the sake of clarity, though, will the budget at least reflect this is the regular salary and this is the ARPA portion? Just so there's transparency when we're looking at budget lines.
If I can answer that for you, Chair Slavin.
Go ahead, Frank.
So the salary will be as voted by the commissioners today and the advisory board right now. The funding sources this year will be as funded in the budget. If we are able to get ARPA reimbursement, then we would actually revote the revenues to add the ARPA money as a revenue. And then we would be able to see the two revenues that are coming in. Does that answer your question, or Treasurer, is there any clarification to that?
Yeah, I think the benefit of it is that we passed a budget not that long ago. And these increases as voted on by the commissioner are identified as work associated with ARPA. The advantage to that is that allows for a cleaner submission by the county to have identified it this way. You don't need to identify in the budget. The commissioners identified it in their vote. That actually strengthens our case that it should be reimbursed by ARPA, because we can identify that as the workload additional cost. So I think we're covered. I think we're in good shape. I rely heavily on council and believe we're in a position to get reimbursed for that differential because of the way the commissioners voted it.
Yeah, I don't think I explained myself very well, but that's not uncommon. What I was thinking is that if it showed, just for easy numbers, original salary 100,000 and then below it the additional 30,000, maybe that would be even more of a better case for reimbursement.
So Council Resnick is off camera, but she has stated that that is something as Frank and the treasurer just explained, once we are hopefully able to start charging ARPA for this, we can do that. We can show the separation, and council is walking in to confirm that.
The other thing that I would add is to show that you also have a separate vote that designates the ARPA for the funding source for those additional increases, as opposed to your budget as your regular source of salary. So you do have two separate and distinct proofs to show that it's separate funds.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Not heard. I'm going to ask for a motion to vote and put on file the transfers that have been requested. I'll need a motion first, please, Libby.
So moved.
I'll motion with Dan from Whitman.
Thank you. Second,
Second,
please give your name.
Halifax, Karen.
Thank you. Okay, Frank, you're going ahead and run the roll call.
Abington,
Alex Pizanson, yes.
Bridgewater. Brockton,
Susan Castro, yes.
Carver,
Mark Townsend, yes.
Duxbury,
Mike McGee, yes.
East Bridgewater. Halifax,
Troy Garen, Halifax, yes.
Hanover, Hanson, Hingham,
Bill Ramsey, yes.
Hull, Kingston,
Jess Kramer, yes.
Lakeville,
Baby and I.
Marion,
Norm Mills, aye.
Marshfield,
Steve Darcy, yes.
Mattapoisett,
Jordan Collier, aye.
Middleborough.
Battistini, yes.
That's all for the letter M's. That's good. Norwell, Pembroke,
Becky Coletta, yes.
Plymouth,
Dick Quintal, yes.
Plimpton,
Mark Russo, yes.
Rochester,
Paul Chibori, yes.
Rockland, Situate, Wareham,
Yes.
West Bridgewater,
Denise Reyes, yes.
Whitman,
Dan Zalbucci, yes.
Okay, Chair, we have a unanimous 19 voting communities, 74.54 in the affirmative and 0 in the negative. The motion passes.
Thank you all. Jared, why don't we go on to the second operational transfer, please?
Great. The second operational transfer is again revenue budget neutral. Over the last several weeks and in the beginning of the budget process, Register Buckley asked for a full-time employee to handle the over $2 million of increased business that the registry has been receiving. After great discussion and work, he agreed to a part-time position that would not increase the pension liability. Since then, the demand has continued and actually increased. So at this time, again, he is asking within his budget, with no increase in the total budget, to transfer from some operational costs a total of $15,945.02 into the personal services employee line item to fund an additional 18-hour part-time temporary person to get things caught up at the Registry of Deeds and to continue the great service that he's always delivered to us. Again, budget neutral, $15,945.02 out of 5 line items: office equipment repair, computer hardware repair, copying services, postage and stationery and office supplies, into employee salaries for a temporary part-time, 18 per hour per week recorder.
Register Buckley, do you have anything to comment?
Sure. Our fiscal year 21 budget ended today at 4:30. We never would have expected during COVID to see the number of increased mortgages and deeds over the past year. We've recorded the highest number of documents since 2006. Although the registry is looked at by many as a revenue generator, it's our statutory responsibility to record documents, scan them as images, create an index to find them, a final index, and a consolidated index, and then microfilm every single document that comes over the counter. We're pretty well caught up with most areas where our index department has really struggled to keep up with recordings. This solution that the commissioners agreed with me this morning is a 1-year temporary part-time indexing job, which would add hours of service to get us caught up over the course of the next year. So just took the money out of our existing voted budget and would ask for your support.
Thank you, Registrar. Anyone have any questions through the chat on this? I don't see anything coming up. Therefore, I would ask for a motion to accept and put on file the transfers that have been requested. I'll need a motion.
I'll motion Dan Salvucci Whitman.
Thank you. I'll need a second.
Second, Matt Poison.
Second from Middleborough.
Okay.
Thank you for 3 of them. Okay, and basically we'll go ahead and Jeff, you want to do the roll call, please?
Okay, Abington,
Alex Bezanson, yes.
Bridgewater, Brockton,
Susan Nicastro, yes.
Carver,
Mark Townsend, yes.
Duxbury,
Mike McGee, yes.
East Bridgewater, Halifax,
Yes.
Hanover, Hanson, Hingham,
William Ramsey, yes.
Hull, Kingston,
Jess Kramer, yes.
Lakeville,
Baby and I.
Marion,
Norm Hills, aye.
Marshfield, Marshfield, you,
I think he left.
I see him on the screen. We can come back to him. Mattapoisett,
Matt Poison, aye.
Middleborough,
Battistini, yes.
Norwell, Pembroke,
Becky Coletta, yes.
Steve Darcy, yes.
Okay, so we've just heard back from Marshfield there with an affirmative. Plymouth,
Dick Quintel, yes.
Yes.
Plimpton,
Mark Russo, yes.
Rochester,
Paul Shabori, yes.
Rockland, Situate, Wareham,
Alan Slavin, yes.
West Bridgewater,
Denise Reyes, yes.
Whitman,
Dan Salvucci, yes.
Okay, we have, again, 19 towns in the affirmative and a total of 74.54% affirmative, 0 in the negative. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Before we go ahead and adjourn, I just want to make a comment to the advisory board. I've been fighting, is the best way to put it, with Jeff Beckwith, from the executive director of the Mass Municipal Association, about their stance on, or anti-stance against counties. And I've been using Plymouth County as a source of why they should change their stance and take it out of their, basically, when you go and look at their actual website, it comes out very quickly there. I haven't given up. I know the commissioners are kind of thinking that won't happen, but I keep banging away at it, and I'll get this done before I retire. And with that, I'd ask for motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion from Middleborough.
Okay, I don't think we need to actually have a count. Just all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a very safe and enjoyable.